Welcome. I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics. You probably know that from the 1950s to the 1970s, the city of San Jose grew and sprawled with very little planning. Since the 1970s, however, the city's been trying to manage growth so it causes fewer problems like traffic congestion, and so that city services can be provided more efficiently. One way a city can do this is with a general plan that states how the city wants to grow in the future. San Jose's current plan is called Envision 2040, as in the year 2040, and it was approved by the City Council in 2011. Now, a task force appointed by the mayor and council is considering revisions to the plan. Today, City Planner Rosalynn Hughey will explain that process to us, and then we'll talk with members of the task force about their perspectives on the revisions. We'll also hear the views of some residents about the future growth of our fair city. Then, in the second portion of our show, we'll do something completely different. Instead of our usual Where Are They Now feature, we'll talk about the first year of Valley Politics and the future of our show, or, in other words, where are we now? All this next on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone. Our guests today are Stephanie Reyes of Greenbelt Alliance and Derek Seaver of the San Jose Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce. Welcome Stephanie and Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before we get started on the general plan revision process, let's hear from Rosalynn Hughey, the city planner, about what a general plan is and what the process involves.
A general plan really is a document, really a blueprint for how a city is going to grow and develop over the long term. It's also a policy document that contains policies and goals and strategies in a number of different areas, from land use and transportation to housing to parks and recreation. And then finally, I would say it's a tool for decision making. So our city departments, our planning commission, and our city council use our general plan in making its decisions on a day-to-day basis. Back in 2011, we completed a major update to our general plan. It was a very robust document. And actually during that process, the participants decided that every 4 years, the city should do a check-in and assess how we're doing in meeting our goals and our objectives. And so actually the current general plan has very specific guidelines that we should conduct this 4-year review. And so during this process, we're going to check in and assess how we're doing on our goals in terms of housing and economic development and parks and recreation and open space and water supply and conservation. And also we're going to take the opportunity to say, well, what perhaps has changed in the last 4 years? And are there modifications or adjustments that we need to make to some of the current policies? Some of the key things we do want to look at, our current general plan has a vision for growing our jobs, so more employment for the residents who live here in San Jose. Currently, there's an imbalance of our jobs and housing here in the city. And so back in 2011, we were very aspirational in terms of how many jobs we wanted to grow. And as we look back, we think perhaps we might have been too aspirational. And so now we're going to be taking a look at some of our data, our population projections, our job projections, and importantly also taking a look at our market data and take a look at where the development pressures are. So we know that we're probably going to be looking at changing what we call our jobs to employed resident ratio and making some changes there. So that's going to be a key part of our scope for this work. The urban village concept is going to be tied into that. That was a major new idea for our general plan in terms of concentrating our growth in these urban villages, creating mixed-use environments where people can live and work and shop and recreate in one particular area. However, with this job aspirations, we found that perhaps we've assigned too many jobs to some of our urban villages. So we're going to take this opportunity to kind of look at all of our urban villages, target the ones where we think there's immediate opportunity for development, and we'll be making some modifications in terms of the jobs numbers that are assigned there. We've actually reconvened the task force that participated in the last update of the general plan. And this is a group made up of over 40 individuals representing community organizations, the business community, the development community. And so we're going to be working with them hand in hand over the next 6 months. And then ultimately, the recommendations would be going to our planning commission and then to City Council for final approval.
So Stephanie and Derek, you each represent your organizations on the General Plan Revision Task Force. And as you know, I represent City Council District 3, the downtown district, on the task force. But before we get into all that, tell us a little bit about what got you connected to your line of work right now. Stephanie, start with you.
Well, Terry, for me, I just love the Bay Area and love living here. And I want to make sure that as the region grows, the Bay Area stays the great place it is and becomes even better. And that's basically Greenbelt Alliance's mission. You know, our goal is to shape the rules that govern growth of the Bay Area so that we can protect the region's beautiful open spaces and farmlands and make sure that our cities and towns become great places for everyone to live.
Okay, but why are you doing this work?
Why am I doing this?
What made you qualified for it?
Before I came here, I was involved with both environmental organizations and also affordable housing organizations. And so having that dual background in the environmental movement and also in sort of housing and development was a perfect fit for an organization like Greenbelt Alliance, which is one of those environmental organizations that's really willing to say yes to the right kind of development in the right places.
Derek, what about you? What brought you to the chamber?
Absolutely, and thank you for including us today. I've spent the last 10, 15 years of my life in government and government relations. A big part of that work in government relations has been around the positive benefit that the private sector, that the business community can have on a community, and not just in business growth, which the chamber and I certainly believe in, but also in place building and how a business organization can be at the table to build sustainable long-term growth and a sustainable long-term community that people want to live, work, and play in. And so the San Jose Chamber and the growth that is currently existing in the South Bay, which is it's an exciting time to be here, attracted me to come to the chamber. And and you're absolutely right, Stephanie. It's a great place to live, and I've grown to love the Bay Area very much in the short couple of years that I've been here because it's an exciting time and it's a great place to be.
It is a great place to be. So we don't need to do that much place building, do we?
It's you know, with the growth and with where the city is going, I think it's a perfect time to talk about exactly those topics, and that's what I think is most exciting about being able to represent the chamber on the General Plan Task Force.
And what's the chamber perspective on this process? What do you think the chamber wants to get out of having you on the task force?
Absolutely. So for our member companies at the San Jose Chamber,
how many members are there in the chamber?
There's about 1,500 members in the San Jose Chamber. It's a regional chamber, so we do take a regional approach to issues. But obviously, the city of San Jose, the largest city in the county and region, makes up the vast majority of our members. And so for them, what they're looking for is, again, how you best manage the growth that is inevitably coming for the city. When you listen to the mayor talk, he talks about the 40% growth rate that's going to exist in San Jose over the next 25 years. What does that look like in terms of jobs, housing balances? What does that look like in the preservation of open space for our residents? And what does that look like for the kind of jobs and the type of economic development that they want to see in the city of San Jose? So I would say for our members, this particular task force is probably the most imperative task force that we're going to participate on this year. It involves so many different areas of planning.
Stephanie, what about Greenbelt? What are they hoping you're going to represent for them on the task force?
Well, Greenbelt was very involved with the original development of the general plan that passed back in 2011.
Michelle Beasley.
Michelle Beasley sat on the task force, was very engaged, and so we were pretty pleased with a lot of the elements of the general plan. It does a lot for protecting open space in places like Coyote Valley and Albanon Valley, plans for the next generation of growth in sort of these walkable, transit-oriented neighborhoods, and sets a goal of reducing how much we drive by giving people more options for how to get around. So it's a visionary plan. We really like the fact that the city built into the plan, let's take a look 4 years later and say, are we achieving what we want to achieve? And so I think Greenbelt Alliance's goals for the update are make sure we keep the good stuff that's working, and then look at places where maybe there are some tweaks that could be made to help us achieve our goals in a better way. And I think particularly around making sure that the city's able to do its part to address the terrible housing crisis our region's experiencing.
As you know, I'm representing the Council District 3, the downtown district. I think our top priorities are jobs in downtown San Jose. We're getting a lot of housing built. I'm not so sure that jobs are keeping up with the housing, so that's important to our district. Also affordable housing, and I think that's on your agendas as well. And we're going to talk about urban villages later, but we have the first urban village plans, and that's really how I connected to this whole process. And we want to see those plans get implemented, and also to see good urban village plans develop in other parts of the city, and there's some challenges to that we'll talk about a little bit later. The top priorities they've set for us on the task force are looking at the jobs and environmental goals, and the urban village process, and transit and transportation. Which of those things is most important to your organizations? Start with Stephanie on this one.
Sounds good. Well,
environmental goals.
Well, we're interested in many of the goals
Yeah.
of the general plan. I think we're really looking to focus on where is there the most need. So I might surprise some folks by saying that really affordable housing is probably our current top priority of those many things that we're
Affordable
interested
housing.
in. So people may
Yeah.
ask, you're an environmental organization. Why do you care about affordable housing? That doesn't make sense. But actually, turns out that the lack of affordable homes in the region is possibly the region's most significant environmental issue for two reasons. First of all, when people can't afford to live in these desirable neighborhoods near jobs, they end up moving to the edge of the region or even beyond the Central Valley. That creates a lot of sprawl pressure on our greenbelt lands in those edge areas. And it also means they have these super long commutes that we read about all the time in the paper, which are terrible for air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, and of course for quality of life. So
Yeah.
for all those regions, affordable housing really high on Greenbelt Alliance's list.
Derek, top priority for the chamber?
Yeah, so certainly job growth is our organization's top priority, but I'd like to just kind of piggyback on some of the things that Stephanie just said, because when you look at job growth, there's multiple questions inside of that. Conceptually, the chamber's members certainly agree with many people at the city, including the mayor and many members of staff, that the jobs housing imbalance is one of the greatest crises that the city faces. But what that number ultimately looks like and how housing is fiscalized inside those studies, those are myriad questions inside the bigger picture. So jobs is our top priority, but how are jobs impacted, right? And how do jobs come here, stay retained here, and grow here? Those involve issues like transportation, which we obviously take a deep interest in. What's the development going to look like around Diridon Station? Are we going to have a better path for BART to come in? What is that long-term growth going to look like? And certainly affordable housing. If we ask our members, they will tell you two of the biggest impediments they face to long-term growth here. One is workforce development, finding the right people to fill the jobs, but the other is their employees needing sustainable places to live. And so our president and CEO, Matt Mayhood, has taken an interest in this issue on the homelessness side because of the public safety and downtown place building concerns. But on the affordable housing side, we are certainly at the same table. I mean, we want a longer term solution to those issues.
Good, and that's a problem for lots of institutions. As you know, I was at San Jose State for many years. Our young faculty can't afford to buy a house, and our newest hire in political science is paying 50% of his monthly income on housing. To be downtown, he's got a good place and actually a fairly reasonable rent for this valley, but it's a real challenge for hiring all across the board. So Stephanie, Greenbelt is an environmental organization, and a lot of people think environmental organizations are just going to say no growth. Is that Greenbelt's position?
Thanks for asking. So Greenbelt Alliance doesn't see growth as inherently good or inherently bad. We really see growth as both a challenge and an opportunity. If done poorly, growth can lead to sprawl development on our beautiful farms and open spaces that we want to avoid, or it can lead to raising the prices of housing and leading to longtime community members being priced out of their neighborhood. But if growth is done right, it can actually be used as a really great tool to do some of the placemaking Derek has been talking about and create great neighborhoods that we can all enjoy and really improve our quality of life.
Okay, and Derek, the stereotype for the chamber is we like growth, any kind of growth, it's good for business.
Absolutely.
True or false?
False. I mean, we do like growth. That part is
Yeah.
true. But it false in the sense that we recognize that rampant sprawl, unregulated growth is not really the way that San Jose is going to grow smart as a city. Every year we take a trip to other U.S. cities, and I'll tell you the three that I've been a part of, the story has been very similar. They're experiencing growth. Cities that are leading the way in the United States are cities that are on the move in that direction, but they're protecting their open space. They're allowing that to be a part of the urban landscape. These are the front yards for a lot of the new employees and residents of the areas. And I think even more importantly, the move towards transit-oriented development and smart growth, and how do you get the job centers and the housing around transit centers to grow the city in a smart way that isn't sprawl. Again, to us, really the crux of what the general plan should be all about. It should be about smart growth for a city that inevitably is going to see quite a bit of it over the next few decades.
One of the big things we're we're assigned to consider on the task force is the jobs to employed resident ratio. The original general plan approved in 2011 sets a really high standard for jobs in the general plan, and I'm pretty sure we would all agree that's a good thing. But what we've learned in 4 years is that they've made virtually no progress in increasing the number of jobs per employed residents. We don't compare well to Palo Alto, Santa Clara, Mountain View, other cities around here. That weakens our tax base. That causes the commute problems that you've been talking about, and housing access and so on. What do you think about the jobs proportion that's proposed in the general plan, and how can we make that more realistic?
So I think, again, the real question is how we look at fiscalization, because at the end of the day, fiscal stability for the city is everything. The city has to be able to provide those types of services, parks, open space, transportation, public safety, that it needs to function as a large growing urban area. So fiscalization and budget stability is everything. I think the 1.3 to 1 ratio is certainly ambitious. I think the reality is that if we had
1.3 jobs to one
sorry,
employed
1.3
resident.
jobs to one resident is ambitious. I think if you ask people, they would love to see 5 jobs or 10 jobs to one resident, right? I mean, but those are what you would love to see.
That would be Palo Alto.
Right, and this is why Palo Alto's tax base is so sizable in comparison to where we are at. One of the interesting things that I think many of our members have recognized about this particular general plan review round is the discussion on the fiscalization of housing and the recognition that there may be a way with the right type of housing, if it is dense enough and in an urban village, also around mixed use and adding some of those commercial and retail centers that can come in with some of those housing cores, to say that maybe not every housing unit is a net negative for the city, depending on how it's planned. So I think the bigger question inside the one that you asked, Terry, is really, again, what are those jobs, what are those housing units, and how do they mold together to make a longer term planning process?
And that kind of takes us to another big component of Envision 2040, which was the urban village concept: high density, mixed use, retail, employment, affordable housing, hopefully, near transit of some sort. But the city feels like they maybe overdid it a little bit with the urban village concept, and we need to back away a little bit. There's been resistance in some neighborhoods to the higher density, and developers have not shown a lot of interest in the jobs component. So where are you all on the urban village proposals and the emphasis on urban villages?
Well, I think urban villages are not only a good choice of growth for the city, but really in a way they're kind of the only choice. If you think about, the city is going to be adding so many jobs and 120,000 new homes over the next few years, and do we want to do that in a way that will just add to traffic and cost the city more in terms of expanding infrastructure to other areas that then needs to be maintained and there's not funding to maintain? Or do we want to continue growing in our existing developed areas, create these walkable neighborhoods that more and more people are really crying for? Everyone from young people, singles, folks who are empty nesters and kind of want to change, young families like myself, really looking for kind of a low maintenance home in a walkable neighborhood near transit. I think that's where demand is going. Now, are there some challenges to actually getting that implemented? Sure there are, and I think one of the biggest ones is funding for the kind of transportation improvements and transit resources we need to make those urban villages work. But again, it's either improve services in our existing neighborhoods or spend even more to expand.
Derek?
Yeah, and I agree with much of that. I think the urban village concept and the urban village model is the ideal. What I think the city and the stakeholders at the table need to be careful of is to not make the perfect the enemy of the good. And the city has real growth needs going forward, both in residents and obviously the attraction and retention of jobs. So if an urban village becomes the only model in which will be approved, I think that's not an ideal situation. But that concept of how you cluster that together is in our opinion, the ideal way to do that type of growth.
So you two agree on a lot more things than we thought you might. Interesting. The three of us are 3 out of 44 members of a task force. It's a massive task force. Do you think we're going to be able to do anything besides rubber stamp staff recommendations?
I mean, I certainly would hope so. I think that we're all being asked to be at the table, our organizations and the individuals that are there for different reasons. But I think at the core of that is the expertise that we all bring to the table. It's obviously a more condensed process and timeline this time than considerably so. than the last time. But at the same time, I think it's important to recognize that staff is there every day. They're living and breathing this. They have a great deal of expertise, and I know our organization values what they do. So we're there to provide input, but obviously want to also listen and learn from what the staff is presenting to us.
Stephanie?
I'm optimistic. I think if the task force tells staff, hey, we're really not headed in the right direction, I think there's a good chance that they'd come back and say, here are some other options. But, like Derek, I do think staff has been giving this a lot of thought, and I'm hopeful that we'll get some really solid proposals coming to us.
We should say that there's also opportunity for public comment at every meeting of the task force, and we heard some very passionate advocates for the mobile home parks at the first meeting, and I'm sure we'll hear more. So there is that opportunity. And ultimately it goes to the City Council and the Planning Commission. So Derek Seaver, Stephanie Reyes, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Now let's hear what some Valley residents have to say about how San Jose should grow in the future.
I think one of the most important things that needs to be changed about San Jose in general is the public transportation system. That's one of the first things that comes to mind. I think it's kind of old and it needs to be a little updated. The buses seem to be a little old and not as fuel efficient as they need to be, and I think that's one of the things that people need to focus on.
I think definitely that traffic has been a problem. I think that, somehow traffic control for people to be able to get to and from without, killing so much time in traffic. I commute myself to school, so I spend an average of probably an hour and a half a day in traffic. I think also around here, the homeless population is a big problem. So I know in some of my classes, there are homeless people that come in and sleep in some of my classes, and I just don't feel safe. And I know especially the crime around here has gone up. So I think definitely in that sense, just having a more safe place in San Jose.
Well, the city is going to grow. It's going to have to grow because if BART comes here, in order to have a population support that BART connection, take a look at San Francisco, and you're going to have a downtown population equal to that, or it's not going to work.
Probably the businesses out here. I feel like most major cities have big shopping malls in the middle of the city, which attracts outside money. And downtown doesn't really have a mall. It did years ago, and that attracted more people from out of town to spend more money in the middle of a city.
And now for something completely different. Instead of where are they now, we're going to talk about where are we now with Valley politics. To get us started, let's hear from Suzanne St. John Crane, Executive Director of CreaTV.
Thanks, Terry. CreaTV San Jose is proud to produce and cablecast Valley Politics. CreaTV's Channel 30 Advisory Council initiated this program because we thought the Valley needed a forum focused on local politics and public policy to better inform us all as citizens, and maybe even to inspire more of us to become engaged in our community. We recruited a great production team to build this show, and we're proud of what they've achieved over the past year. We'd like to thank our fabulous viewers for their feedback this year and express our appreciation for the many donors who have helped make Valley Politics possible and who hope to see it continue. So I'm pleased to announce today that CreaTV is renewing Valley Politics for another year. We're looking forward to learning more about issues in the Valley and meeting current, past, and future leaders. If you'd like to help sustain Valley Politics, here's a way to contribute. Go to our website at creatvsj.org and click on Donate. Your donation is tax deductible. So I want to thank you, and thanks for watching Valley Politics.
Thanks, Suzanne. Our production team is excited about the coming year, and we're eager to tell you about some of our future shows and also about one significant change in our program. So let's start with that change. Over the past year, we've featured every member of the San Jose City Council and 4 of the 5 members of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors on our Neighborhood News segment. Our intent was to introduce these elected officials and their districts to viewers who might not have been familiar with them, and we greatly appreciate the participation of all these leaders. Now that we've heard from them, we're going to shift our focus from neighborhood news to community news, featuring leaders of nonprofits and community organizations telling us about their missions, a current project or two, and how viewers can volunteer or participate. Since the focus of this show has been on planning for the future, we continue that theme with our first community news, featuring the Committee for Green Foothills. I should note that this is a completely different group from the one represented early in our show by Stephanie Reyes. So here's Megan Medeiros to tell us about the work of the Committee for Green Foothills.
Hi, I'm Megan Medeiros, Executive Director of Committee for Green Foothills. For over 50 years, we've protected the open space, farmland, and natural resources in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties through advocacy, education, and grassroots action. I do this work because I know that we're all better off with nature close to home. I want future generations to have access to the same experiences outdoors as I had growing up. Day in and day out, we speak up for farmland and hillsides, for forests and wetlands. We are the champions of the San Mateo County coast and for creeks and parks throughout the region. Unfortunately, our work is never done, and we'll continue to face challenges in the years ahead. As the saying goes, nature is never saved, it's always being saved. Within just the next few months, for example, we may lose over 700 acres of farmland to sprawl in Santa Clara County if the cities of Morgan Hill and Gilroy are granted their proposals to annex and expand onto county land. This would constitute the largest farmland loss in Santa Clara County in decades, and would likely set the stage for poor planning for years to come. Committee for Green Foothills is working hard to prevent this from happening, and we hope you'll join us. To get involved, become a member, and find out more about what we're doing in your neighborhood, visit our website at greenfoothills.org. Thank you.
We'll hear from many more active and engaging groups like the Committee for Green Foothills in our community news feature on future shows. In the other segments of Valley Politics, we've attempted to inform you about issues like housing and police pensions, political developments like the power of the Vietnamese vote or women in local politics, and of course we heard from the president of the Board of Supervisors on the state of the county and the mayor on the state of the city. Our guests have included high-profile leaders like Mayor Sam Liccardo, Supervisor Dave Cortese, and U.S. Representative Zoe Lofgren, and we've also made a conscious effort to introduce you to new and emerging leaders like James Gonzalez of the San Jose Police Officers Association, San Jose State University professor Melinda Jackson, who shared her polling data with us, school trustees Teresa Castellanos and Susan Ellenberg, Bob Nunez, chair of the County Republican Party, Angelica Ramos of the National Women's Political Caucus, Wayne Chen of San Jose's Housing Department, and Vietnamese community leaders Lan Nguyen and Hung Nguyen. And we introduce you to San Jose's new city manager and to the candidates in the special election for San Jose City Council in District 4. On our Where Are They Now segment, we've learned about political leadership and Valley history from Susan Hammer, Ron Gonzalez, Susie Wilson, Norm Mineta, Dan McCorkadale, and Blanca Alvarado. In the coming year, we'll get acquainted with more established and emerging leaders and talk further with some of the men and women who shaped the Valley's history. We've already recorded great interviews with former City Councilman Frank Fiscalini and County Supervisor Rod Diridon. Both were movers and shakers in the Valley for decades. We're also planning programs on the state of the county and the state of the city when the president of the Board of Supervisors and the mayor give their annual speeches. Other topics on our agenda for the coming year include poverty in the Valley, rent control, and also the role of the Chamber of Commerce in local politics. We'd love it if you'd suggest other topics for us. And of course, this is an election year and we're political junkies on this show, so we'll do several programs focused on the June and November elections with guests like Bob Brownstein and Jude Barry, who helped us kick off this program talking about San Jose's 2014 mayoral election on our very first show. This year, we'll see competitive races for 4 open seats on the San Jose City Council and for the Assembly District that comprises East and Central San Jose. We will have in-the-know guests with us to talk about which races and candidates to watch before the elections, and then to help us understand what happened after the election. In short, we hope to inform you about current issues and events, introduce you to new and established leaders, and most of all, we hope to inspire you to become a participant in the life of this community. All this and more in 2016 on Valley Politics. Meanwhile, you can watch all of our first 12 shows on the CreaTV YouTube page. Just go to YouTube and search for CreaTV San Jose. You can also visit our website at creatvsj.org or email your comments to us at valleypolitics@creatvsj.org. And you can follow us on Facebook, where you can post comments and suggest guests or topics. And now that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics. See you next time.